With Jesse Simonton, Austin Price, Brent Hubbs. A little instant reaction. Tennessee beats Mississippi State today 20-10, and a surprising, not necessarily a surprising win, but a surprising fashion in how Tennessee won. What's the greater surprise here? That they hold Hill to 13 yards rushing, Jesse. They've got 7 or 8 sacks in this game. Or that Jerry Garantano in the second half is 6 of 7 for 106 yards and a touchdown pass.
This is like this is one of those hat deals like you see at the baseball game. I'm not sure there is a right answer.
That's the parlay that wins millions, Vols.
I mean, it's got to be Keelan Hill being able to stymie him the way they did. I'm not surprised based on kind of Mississippi State's pass protection issues all season. Also, the fact that they kind of they run a lot of those deep play action routes, so it kind of sets themselves up to get to kind of accumulate some sacks. Now, Tennessee's defensive backfield, and I noted it in the in-game chat, Danny Matuli made sure to kind of interrupt a reporter's question to go ahead and give credit to the defensive back that they had a lot to do with Tennessee getting some of those sacks today. There was some sticky coverage back there, whether it was Nigel Warrior at safety, Schamberger at star. I thought Alante probably played his best game in relief coming in. But again, circling back, Tennessee's ability to stop the guy who led the SEC or second in the SEC in rushing, it just completely changed what Mississippi State was trying to do, and it allowed Tennessee to start to shorten the game. It allowed Mississippi State to kind of abandon, I think, whatever plan they had going in, and that ended up being the difference in a game that finished 20-10.
I don't want to take anything away from Tennessee's win. We're going to talk a lot about Tennessee's win, but it was a really bizarre game from Mississippi State's standpoint because they start Tommy Stevens.
Clearly
Schrader's been their more productive guy, even though he hadn't thrown it a whole lot. His ability to run the football, and then second possession 2 or 3, I think that the next couple they had in the first quarter, Hill's not even in the game. Like they didn't even try to get him into a rhythm in the game. Was really bizarre. And again, I don't want to take anything away from Tennessee, but I thought State's plan was kind of a head scratcher in terms of attacking Tennessee where Tennessee was most vulnerable. As a result of that, Jesse, I thought it got Tennessee really going and gaining confidence with each passing drive. I thought Tennessee had a ton of energy to start, which is great, but a lot of times you lose that. But you could see them building confidence moving forward. Emerson, Middleton, these guys that were getting pressure in there and winning in the line of scrimmage. Kind of a bizarre plan by State that played into Tennessee's favor that Tennessee took full advantage of.
Oh, it made no sense to me that Schrader didn't start, and you kind of saw the life and juice he gave to the Bulldogs offense. I mean, the difference in the game ultimately was that Mississippi State cut this to a 1-score game. Tennessee fans are kind of saying, oh, here we go again. You're counting the points that you left on the board, right, AP, in the first half with Maurer's 2 interceptions. And then you get the kickoff.
I'm only giving him the one, though, Jesse, because, obviously if you have a concussion, probably shouldn't have been in that next play, probably wasn't of sound mind. I'm only giving him the one. Do you
he
not
still
agree?
Threw the ball.
I understand.
Who gets the other one?
He gets the pick, okay, in statistics. But as far as, of sound mind, did he throw that pick? I can you say that for sure? Because I can't.
No,
I also can't say for sure that he was blurry-eyed and didn't know where he was throwing the ball.
No, you're right. You're right. We don't know.
I mean,
one is there were 2 bad decisions that took points away from Tennessee.
Cost at least 6 points, and then Mississippi State kicks it deep. You've been asking them to return it. They finally returned it.
That was on
and
you,
they get a holding penalty. They get a holding penalty that puts them back to the 10-yard line. And what do? They respond by, for the first time all day, having some actual success pushing the pile forward. And then, Garantano makes a pretty simple but easy throw. Bird breaks a tackle and houses it. And that's the game. I mean, that drive, I think, is the type of drive that Pruitt has kind of been looking for from this team for 18 months.
Well,
and they finally put it
together. It
together.
was a heck of a check down by JG over to Tim Jordan, and didn't and threw that one and didn't bullet it over there to him like he's done so many times in the past. A good solid pass. Jordan did enough to get the first down, and then credit Gerard Means, for doing just enough. It wasn't an exceptional block, but he got in the way, and that sprung Tyler Bird.
Well, it was a perfect block because he didn't try to knock the guy down. He didn't do anything dumb. He just shielded him like a basketball screen. What he did do. I thought the check down to Tim Jordan was the better play by Jared Garantano, because that was not the primary where he was trying to go. Pressure was coming. He kind of held it to the last second there before he dropped it off to Tim Jordan. I thought that was as good of a feel for the game as Jared's had in a while. I thought that was a really good throw in the most critical of times for Tennessee.
Going back over my notes here, you talked about just kind of how they started. Tennessee had 2 tackles for loss against Georgia. Mm-hmm. They had 3 tackles for loss in 5 plays to start this game. And it just set the tone. Right. The defense just started, you could tell flying around, gaining confidence, and it was different guys making play. Darrell Taylor, you look at the stat sheet, and he stuffed it. He had 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. I bet when I go back and rewatch the play, he probably sealed the edge that allowed some guys to make a backside tackle for a loss or a backside play at the line of scrimmage as many times as he came up with those 5 tackles. He had a really strong performance, and it was just kind of down the line defensively.
Well, I thought Greg Emerson flashed a couple times, made a really good play in a tackle for loss that he had. They just got a lot of help from a lot of people, and quietly, Darrell Middleton, in the last 2 games, has shown up. Has he dominated? Absolutely not. But he's showing you enough to get more and more snaps because he's holding gaps and holding a lot of scrimmage.
Well, what you've got to hope is Darrell. The buy-in. The buy-in seems to be there. It's just that he continues to improve. He's never really had a true defensive line coach, guy that could coach him day in, day out, and to see the improvement, because he's bounced around at the high school level, bounced around even at the JUCO level. So, it's going to take some time. And even though he's a JUCO guy, to think that he was going to roll in here and just be an instant impact guy, I always thought that was far-fetched. But you're right. He's made some plays the last couple of weeks that I think at least shows flashes, because he's as pretty a kid as they got coming off the bus.
Well, and I don't know how much it'll help Tennessee win games down the stretch or won't win games. That obviously remains to be seen. But I think it's the first time in his career, Jesse, that Nigel Warrior in back-to-back games has been solid. I thought he played well against Georgia. I thought he was more physical. I thought today he was solid. Is that a great passing team? Obviously not. But for the second straight game, you saw him. He showed up. Well, whereas the first 3 or 4 games this season, you didn't even know he was on the field.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the important thing is that, Mississippi State can't really throw it, but hell, half the time in Nigel Warrior's career, he wasn't even in the same zip code of some of these plays, and now he's breaking up passes. He's coming up with tough interceptions. Really good showing. I wrote in my 10 things that I thought that him particularly. Now Tennessee actually didn't play quite as much one high robber stuff as I thought they might. They did kind of sit back. And again, I think that's some of the Pruitt and Ansley want to limit the big plays, but the plan worked, and the guys got off the edge, and the interior guys, like you mentioned, Emerson, but Bumpus was solid at times, and Matthew Butler kind of gave them quietly some strong snaps. Now, can they do it again next weekend against one of the most explosive offenses in the country? We'll see, but it was certainly a positive performance today.
Well, I just ask it point blank. How big of a win was this for this program today?
It was massive, because 1-6. The way South Carolina just beat Georgia today defensively. Whether Helinski's will play in 2 weeks or not, who knows? That remains to be seen. I would, looking at him, I would doubt it. But they're still defensively, the way they played today, good enough to definitely come in here and win in 2 weeks. So you've got to be able to win today. Otherwise, you're looking at 1-6, and then it's Katie bar the door. So now all of a sudden, if you with the win today, if you can win in 2 weeks, and then do what you're supposed to against UAB, you're at the same spot you were a year ago. 4 wins with 3 to go. You beat Kentucky last year and got to 5 with 2 to go, and then laid an egg in the last 2. It gives you a puncher's shot.
Well, and South Carolina's win today, probably, we'll see on Monday, but I would assume probably, because that's late next weekend and 2 weeks doesn't look that great. If Tennessee even wins today against Mississippi State, but Georgia beats South Carolina, it's probably a noon game here. I bet it's a night game here in 2 weeks, which would help the Vols. Obviously, it's another recruiting weekend that they'll try to capitalize on. It was big. This is a game that Pruitt had to win. Mississippi State is not that good. They did come in, quote unquote, better than the Vols, but there was a reason why this was kind of a crossroads toss-up game for Jeremy Pruitt, because of the potential repercussions of if you didn't win, and they found a way to win. Yeah. And that drive at the end was kind of, his statement that this is the sort of brand of football we're going to play. He said it after the game. We haven't really talked much about Jarrett, but they didn't ask him to do a whole lot.
Right.
But when he did make the plays, he made the plays, and the rest of it was getting physical and trying to be physical. They just clearly tried to shorten the game with as many runs as they called, and they leaned on a defense that through this, what are we at, 6 games or whatever, has had some real issues, and yet today it won them a football game.
Well, it's funny. I was sitting there thinking about you today, Austin, while we were sitting there working the game.
That's sweet, Brent.
I know, and because you said in the Friday podcast, maybe it's Friday or Tuesday, one of the 2 podcasts is about, it's hard to put a lot of stock in practice stuff. It's just hard to get a gauge in that stuff. And look out there, and I don't know what the stat numbers are going to be, but Jerome Carvin played more right guard today than anybody else on the team. Jerome Carvin's a guy that
there's nowhere to be found. Jesse and I talked about this in the pregame.
Scout team guy. I mean, was just nowhere to be found a week ago, and this week you didn't expect him to play either.
It's funny. AP and I had several conversations during the game about funny stuff, about what you see in pregame, practice, whatever. Jerome Carvin's running with the 3rd team or 4th team in pregame warm-ups. Jarrett Garantano was running as the 3rd team quarterback
and getting, literally
and
the other 2 guys were
barely
getting all the
wasn't,
reps.
barely wasn't even taking snaps. And I joked with AP, the only reason they put him in the dang game was because they're not sure Shrout can take snaps under center. Now, maybe that's not true, but who knows? And yet, AP astutely pointed out the huge pass play that they had to Domwood Anderson that kind of got the offense going was something we did see in practice, and was something they rep for 2 days hard, the little tight end wiggle. Yeah. And they hit that for a huge play. So it's your eyes can lie to you at times, and some of the stuff you see is actually telling you the truth. It's a funny deal.
Putting stock and stuff, I don't want to discount the fact Tennessee won a football game today. Because, and they did hold it. But they held it, and whether Mississippi State's very good or not, it doesn't matter.
No.
They held a Mississippi State team to 10 points, Brent.
Mm-hmm.
This defense has gotten gashed for 4 years, going back to the 2 with Bob and even the last 2 years with Jeremy. They've given up massive play after massive play, and it didn't matter if it was, against top-end talent or Georgia State. This is a defense that's given up too many game-breaking, game-changing type plays the last couple of years, and they didn't today. And the last 2, and really, I know they gave up 40-something points last week, but I honestly think that the defense last week actually didn't play that bad. Georgia just has more bullets in the gun, a lot more bullets. But Tennessee was able to bend but don't break. They didn't give up those 80-yard plays a week ago. They did give up some 40-yarders, but going into today, you didn't see much of that. And again, I'm not saying State's a juggernaut, but bad teams have been able to move the ball in Tennessee.
The reason why, I will say this, the reason why that drive, obviously it made it a 2-possession game, but the reason why it was so important, as well as the defense played, I do think State started to sort of figure some stuff out there. In the 4th quarter, Tennessee was not containing as well, and the fact that Toa was not on the field anymore, we saw it on the touchdown pass. I'll have it in my film review probably tomorrow. On that drive in particular, there's a reason why Crouch right now, if he's going to play inside linebacker, can only play on early downs because he has no idea what to do on a passing play. And they picked on him twice.
They're almost better off to bring Jalen McCullough down in the box or Nigel.
And we'll see. What they, my guess, since Toto is only going to miss 1 half, my guess is they're not going to drastically change plans. But clearly, they don't have any faith in J.J. Peterson right now. And I do think, again, that's why that touchdown was so important. If State got the ball back, that might have been a dicey deal for a Tennessee defense that up to that point had played a really strong game.
Well, and that drive that you're talking about, 9 plays, 91 yards, everybody's going to talk about the 2 plays that Jared made throwing the football on 3rd down, which was pivotal. But for this team, going back to what you're saying, for this offense and this offensive line, who's not been very good for a while, to put the ball down at the 9-yard line and run it 6 consecutive times into Mississippi State territory.
With Chandler having that 15-yard run when he was dragging people forward, that was one of his better runs of his career.
But it has to be a huge look. They haven't arrived. But when you're looking for moments that are building moments that you can look back on and say, some guys started to come to age a little bit here and there. That's going to be one of those drives to go 6 straight plays and to be able to do that, milking the clock and running it on the. Tennessee hadn't done that. I don't know when the last time Tennessee. Somebody will say back in the Philip Fulmer days, Austin, but it's been a while since Tennessee's been able to line up and impose their will for that many consecutive snaps in the run game.
Against a team that had their full allotment on defense.
And had all the momentum in the football game right there because they had just scored to close it to 3. Tennessee makes a mistake on the kickoff with the penalty and obviously the poor return starting at their 9-yard line. I mean, State had everything going in their favor, and for Tennessee to silence that by running the football shows the growth that the offensive line is making. They haven't gotten there yet, but it does show the growth they're making with Darnell Wright, with Wanye Morris, Trey Smith rounding into form, Kennedy getting better, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, I was actually kind of surprised the way they, and it'll be interesting to kind of see the snap count when we rewatch the game. Wright got rotated out a bunch. Calvert played a lot. Obviously, Carvin ended up, he got Ryan Johnson got pulled. So just kind of some of those combinations. Tennessee even did two snaps of an unbalanced line with Wanye lining up technically as a tight end next to it. Now the play didn't work, but they ran a couple of those. So I think some of those guys, more than others, I think are progressing. But at least on that drive, you kind of saw and come to fruition what Will Friend and Jim Chaney want, which is to kind of this is how you end the game. And you run it, and they know you're running it, and they can't stop you.
Yep, and that's finally what Tennessee was able to do against an SEC opponent, which may be the biggest storyline coming out of this game today. That's going to do it for this Quick Takes Reaction podcast for Jesse Simonton and Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your Saturday, everybody.